Hi everyone, it's Eric from ecartman12.blogspot.com and welcome to my full review of the HTC One Mini 2. Now, as always, a big thanks must go over to Vodafone for sending me this handset over to review. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be getting all this coverage videos I've been giving you of this smartphone. So, let's dive straight into the cons, then we'll move on to the pros. Now, the cons about this smartphone. The first thing is that this turns on in my pocket, and a bit too often. Now this happens way too much. Whenever I'm at work or something and your phones are supposed to be off, what happens is that somehow it tends to press this button and turn the power on, somehow unlock itself and starts doing stuff in my pocket. Now granted I did have a couple of things in my pocket at the time, but they were like just stuff like papers and stuff like that, like receipts and stuff. So I think it happens a bit too often. My second sort of like problem is that the camera. Now, instead of opting for the 4-megapixel ultra-pixel camera that HTC used in their HTC One M8, they decided to go with a 13-megapixel sensor with this One Mini 2. And for video, it's great. We'll get back onto that later in the good aspects. But for photos, this really is lacking, and it really is lacking quite a lot. There is a lot of grain and stuff like that in the photos, but that's really when you're indoors. When you're outdoors, the photos are perfectly serviceable. And even indoors, if you want to basically do stuff just for Instagram and stuff, then this camera is perfectly acceptable for that. But if you want to have like proper family photos and stuff, you don't want to properly use this unless this is the only thing you have apart from a compact camera or something like that. The other bad problem that I had is that the battery life. Now the battery life we'll move on to again later in full depth, but for when I'm playing games, the battery on this smartphone does deplete much faster than other smartphones that I've noticed. And my final complaint is the screen. Now, I've gotten really no problems with the screen, except for the fact that for 4.5 inches, this is really quite tall. I think it should have been a bit wider. I mean, the 4.7-inch screen is what you get with a Nexus 4, and this is a 4.5-inch screen, and the screen is just too tall. And when I'm typing stuff with the keyboard, this can cause for some mistype, so if I want to press the L button, sometimes, or the K button, sometimes instead I'd press the backspace button, and that would get rid of what I'm typing. So little problems like that, really, that I've actually been experiencing with the screen. So I think the screen should be a bit more wider as opposed to taller. I mean, this is the route that Apple normally go, and I don't like that route when they increase their screen size. And those are all the bad points of this smartphone. Now let's move on to the good stuff. First off, the build quality. This is what we've come to expect, but HTC really are number one when it comes to build quality in smartphones. They always give you a complete and utter wow factor. I mean, just look at this, the way it reflects inside the light. It just looks so good, and the brushed aluminium look of it. The quality of this is not as good as that found on the HTC One M8, but unlike the original HTC One Mini you got from last year, you don't really notice it when you're actually holding it. If you do side-by-side comparisons, then yes, you will notice that the proper One M8 is better in terms of build quality and feels better, but you don't really think about it when you're holding this smartphone. The other thing which I like, obviously, is, like I mentioned earlier, the screen. The screen is a 720p panel, and really it's just like really nice to look at. The colours and the contrast is really good. I've got no problems with the screen, and as you can see, this looks really great, and you can't see any sort of pixelization going on. So for me, I would still like a 1080p screen and one that's a bit wider for video playback. As you know, I love my media. But then what sort of compensates for that is these dual boom sound speakers right here. These are stereo speakers, front facing. HTC are known for these, and it really is fantastic. Not as good as, again, as the One Mini, not the One Mini, I mean as the previous HTC One M8. But, you know, you come to expect that. The smartphone's smaller, they have to fit smaller grills on here, and for what they do, they perform perfectly fine, and there's no distortion even on the highest volumes. The other thing I liked was the video recording. Now, you saw me do a couple of video tests with both the front and rear facing camera, and I thought the video recording that I did was actually really quite good. I was very impressed with the detail it captured, and yes, it's obviously not 2 or 4K sort of like capture, obviously, but the thing is, you don't need that sort of capture yet. Although some future proofing would be nice, but this is a mini smartphone, you're paying less money for it. And yeah, it's been really impressive in terms of video quality, and the photos, as I said, when you're outdoors, they still look really quite nice. The other thing which I've really been so impressed by, but, you know, it doesn't really come as a surprise to me, is the performance. I mean, seriously, the performance on this is, like, absolutely fantastic. I've had no problems when just swiping between screens, putting down the notification bar, playing video games, or anything of the sort. Everything is just super fast. HTC are very light with their HTC Sense overlay, and it's not, like, overblown like we get with TouchWiz, or heck, even LG's sort of, like, skin on top of Android, because with the LG G3, that was lagging a lot, but this, as soon as I press anything, instantly just goes into it. If I press, say, my email application, instantly goes into it. If I pop into the gallery, instantly goes into it. If I pop into the browser, instantly goes into it as well. Then it loads the web page. The Play Store, instantly. You can see it's like super fast, and I have not increased, gone to the developers options or anything to increase the animation speed. This is exactly the speed that it runs at out of the box. It's also at Google Now, which, you know, I really do love Google Now. It's really good. And, you know, the fact that Google Now brings you information as opposed to you having to ask it for the information is also a really great feature of it. And overall, this has been a really superb smartphone. The battery life has really been very good for when I'm just using it like for normal use, social networking when I'm out and about, using it to make and take calls, do some text messaging, watch some videos. I've easily been getting a day out of this, and that is really pretty good. Not the best out there, but still, that is still pretty good that I managed to get a full day easily. And incoming and outgoing call quality from the earpiece at the top over there, and the microphone, which is located right around the bottom area somewhere, is really great. I've got no problems with it. Incoming calls have been incredibly clear. Outgoing calls, people have been saying, have also been absolutely fine, and that has been really clear. They've had no problems hearing my voice when I've been making phone calls to them. So yes, overall this has been a wonderful smartphone. It is the HTC One Mini, so obviously they've cranked down some of the specifications. And really, I've really been very impressed. I've really enjoyed my time with it as well. I'm just so impressed at how this smartphone has performed, especially when you take into account that it's obviously supposed to not be as good as the One M8. But I'll tell you, I would say go with the One M8, but if you don't need all those extra features that the One M8 has, like you don't need the screen to be bigger, you don't need a 1080p screen, and you don't mind the speakers, like, you know, you don't want the speakers to be as good as that on the One M8, you could go for one of these and you can get them cheaper, and really it would suit you very well. As far as all the mini smartphones go, this is the best in terms of build quality, and the best in terms of performance, because all other mini smartphones out there have some sort of like overlay on top of it. Now there are smartphones as well, like the Moto G and stuff, which are also cheaper than this, and they have great performance and stuff. But if you want the boom sound speakers like I normally would, and the sort of like fantastic build quality you can get from HTC, then you're gonna have to pay that little bit premium to get this sort of smartphone. But overall, I've really enjoyed my time with the One M8, and can highly recommend it to anyone who wants to get a mid-end Android smartphone. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Eric from ecartman12.blogspot.com. Please follow me on my social networks. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and even on Instagram, on Google+. If you want to ask me any questions on those platforms, please feel free to do so, and I will answer them as soon as possible. Or just pop me a question in the comment section below, and I will answer it as soon as possible. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see all of you next time. Take care.